Okay, let's try and unpack this. Imagine a place, right, where the pillars of justice themselves just crumble, where a courtroom, the very symbol of, impartiality and order, it becomes a scene of both a murder and these alleged twisted parties.
Yeah, it's hard to even picture.
It really is. But this isn't some, far-fetched novel. It's the profoundly unsettling real-life story unfolding right now in Letcher County, Kentucky.
A small Appalachian community.
Exactly. Rocked by a fatal shooting involving its highest legal officials. And it's all intertwined with this staggering web of dark allegations that has cast, well, a long dark shadow over the entire region and, frankly, beyond.
Absolutely.
So our mission today is to take a real deep dive into the full scope of what's been called the Loop Court, Judge, Sheriff, Murder, and Sextortion scandal. We're going to try and dissect the timeline, introduce you to the central characters, their tragic connection.
And really explore those profound questions this case raises.
Yes.
Questions about trust, betrayal, the very integrity of the justice system.
Right. And we're drawing from detailed briefings, analyses like Letcher County Loop Court, Murder and Sextortion Scandal by Devin McClarty. Now,
Yeah.
before we go further, maybe we should clarify what Loop Court means here.
Good point. It's not just the title. It's this specific analytical framework McClary developed.
Okay.
It basically looks at how these deeply interconnected local power structures can form a kind of closed loop, where abuses can happen and just keep happening, often because there isn't enough outside oversight or internal accountability.
So it's like a lens to understand how something like this could even occur.
Exactly. How such a, catastrophic failure could possibly happen in a community.
Right.
And what's fascinating, as this loop court analysis encourages, is how the sources don't just, lay out the facts chronologically. They really push us to interrogate the structure.
Interrogate the structure, meaning...
Look beyond the surface.
Yeah.
Ask not just what happened, but why was it allowed to happen? What does it mean for the idea of justice, really, in any community?
Yeah.
Because this isn't just being presented as a tragic crime, right? It's being framed as a catastrophic systemic failure. It challenges how we think power operates, especially in places where relationships are super intertwined and maybe oversight isn't as strong.
It hints at a bigger breakdown, then.
A pervasive breakdown, yeah. Something that allowed these events to unfold in such a shocking way. It just shakes the fundamental trust people put in their local government, their courts.
Okay, so to really grasp the gravity here, we absolutely have to start with this central event, the undeniable thing, the murder itself.
September 19th, 2024.
A day that I imagine will forever be seared into the memory of Letcher County. Judge Kevin Mullins was fatally shot. And the location, this is chilling. Not in some back alley, but in his chambers.
Inside the courthouse.
Inside the very walls of the courthouse. The physical embodiment of justice and order, and the alleged perpetrator, making this even more incredible, the county's own sheriff, Shawn Stines.
Not an outsider.
Yeah.
Someone from the very core of the system.
Exactly, an act from within. And what makes this even more shocking, harder to comprehend, this wasn't some hidden crime done in the dark.
No, the sources confirm it was caught on surveillance video.
Wow. Just stark, undeniable testament to a profound breakdown in every sense.
And the immediate aftermath. Stones pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder of a public official.
Right. Setting the stage for what looks like an incredibly high-stakes legal battle. But here's where it gets just profoundly heartbreaking. It reveals this depth of personal tragedy alongside the institutional one.
The connection between them.
Stines and Mullins, they weren't just a sheriff and a judge in the same county. Our sources describe them as lifelong friends.
Lifelong friends. Yeah.
Think about that. Not a stranger, not even a casual acquaintance. Two men who knew each other intimately, shared decades of history, lives woven together in that community. Ending like this. Horrific. Public.
The personal betrayal there is
Wow.
staggering, just as much as the institutional one.
Absolutely.
And if we widen the lens a bit, this incident, just on its own, points straight to this immense institutional betrayal. That's a term that really echoes through the source material.
Institutional betrayal.
Yeah, I mean, picture it. A sheriff, sworn to uphold the law, keep people safe, maintain order, allegedly killing a judge. The personification of judicial impartiality, and doing it inside the courthouse.
The sanctity of the courthouse.
Exactly. It's an unprecedented breach of trust at the absolute highest level of a community's justice system. It doesn't just hurt one person. It rips apart the very fabric of what people expect from their officials, from the institutions meant to protect them.
So this act alone just forces us to ask, What on earth could drive someone to do that?
Right. What could possibly drive a lifelong friend, a county sheriff with that kind of public role, to commit such an act against someone he knew so well, served alongside?
In the machinery of justice itself.
Precisely. It's not just about the crime. It's about this collapse of personal bonds, professional integrity. It demands a deeper look. The search for the why here is just central to understanding the whole tragedy.
And that question, the why, the motive, that leads us straight into these explosive, deeply disturbing allegations that surfaced after the murder.
The timing is crucial.
It really seems to be. Our sources strongly suggest this wasn't just coincidence. It looks like a crucial, maybe even the foundational piece of the puzzle connecting the murder to this emerging scandal.
What is it?
Days, mere days before that shooting, Sheriff Stines gave a deposition in a sexual abuse lawsuit.
Wow. Days before.
Yeah, the timing is just incredibly significant. It almost screams out for a deeper look, right? It suggests Stines might have learned something critical, maybe something personally devastating, or was under immense pressure related to these allegations.
Which could then provide a motive, however tragic.
Exactly, a potential motive for the shooting. That connection between the deposition and the violence, it's a central focus of the loop court analysis.
Okay, so what were those allegations in the lawsuit?
Well, this is where it gets really dark, deeply unsettling. Posthumously, Judge Kevin Mullins is accused of operating a heinous sex-for-favors scheme.
Sex for favors.
Yeah, and not just, an isolated incident of bad behavior. The sources describe it as a systematic exploitation of vulnerable individuals.
Who are the alleged victims?
Young women, the sources say, many of whom were already vulnerable, often on house arrest. Think about the power imbalance there.
Huge. They're directly under his authority.
Completely. Their freedom, their future, their lives, literally in his hands. He could grant bail, deny bail, impose sentences, suspend them, dictate everything. And that position of ultimate authority, according to these allegations, was weaponized.
Oh, so what was the alleged exchange?
The coercion, as the sources detail it, was chillingly direct. Systematic. Sexual acts, allegedly, in exchange for judicial leniency.
Leniency like?
Favorable rulings, maybe later sentences, avoiding jail time altogether. Imagine the pressure, the existential fear these individuals must have faced.
Their liberty hanging in the balance, conditioned on complying with something so degrading, so illegal.
It just twists the whole concept of justice into this grotesque mockery, doesn't it? Turning the judicial process into a tool for personal exploitation.
It really does. And, this raises a deeply troubling question. What kind of environment, what kind of system allows a judge, someone with that much power and public trust, to allegedly coerce vulnerable people like that? And for it to apparently go on, maybe even as an open secret.
That's what the loop core analysis points to, right?
Exactly. It argues this goes beyond just one person abusing power. It describes it as a systemic betrayal. The very mechanisms designed to protect and rehabilitate were allegedly weaponized against the people they were meant to serve.
Systemic betrayal, that term really captures the scale of it.
It does. It indicates a failure not just of an individual, but of the whole interconnected structure. And the specifics, the details, and the sources about where these alleged acts happened, they're truly disturbing. They amplify the sense of desecration.
Where are we talking about?
Well, the sources cite allegations of twisted parties in his courtroom.
In the courtroom itself.
In the courtroom. Think about that.
Yeah.
The space meant for impartial justice, the symbol of law and order, allegedly corrupted for illicit activities, turning this, sacred public space into a site of profound abuse.
That's hard to fathom.
And it didn't stop there. The sources mention these activities also allegedly happened in his courthouse chambers. It suggests a pervasive pattern, exploiting his judicial position across multiple official settings.
So not just isolated incidents.
Not according to these allegations.
Right.
The sources imply a culture of abuse that permeated the very institutions of local justice. Victims, often these young women on probation or house arrest, were allegedly coerced into sexual encounters, not just in the judge's chambers, but also reportedly within the jail itself.
In the jail.
And other parts of the courthouse, too. All with promises of reduced sentences, favorable bail, avoiding incarceration. The power imbalance was just absolute, leaving these individuals feeling trapped, completely without recourse.
And you mentioned earlier maybe this was an open secret.
Well, what's even more troubling, and really feeds into that loop court idea of systemic failure, is confirmation from local officials that rumors about these activities were widely known in the community.
Widely known, so people knew this might be happening.
Apparently, which just begs the question, how could something like that persist without intervention, without accountability.
It points to something deeply wrong in the local power structure.
Exactly. Where maybe a profound abuse of power was not only tolerated, but perhaps even protected, or at least ignored. And the victim testimony, our sources highlight this, it alleges intimidation, abuse. It paints this picture of profound emotional, psychological harm inflicted by someone in the ultimate position of authority.
These aren't just legal claims, then.
No, they represent deeply personal tragedies for the people caught in this alleged web, and a massive failure of the community to protect its most vulnerable members.
Okay, so with these shocking allegations against Judge Mullins as the backdrop, and that implicit link to Sheriff Stines' deposition just days before the shooting, let's shift focus to Stines' legal battle. How is his defense confronting the murder charge?
Right. So, as you said, he pleaded not guilty back in November 2024. But his defense team is clearly gearing up for a really complex, multi-pronged fight. They're not leaving any stone unturned, it seems.
What are the main strategies emerging?
Well, early 2025 saw a significant move. They filed a motion for a mental evaluation.
Ah, so hinting strongly at a potential insanity defense.
It certainly points that way. It's not a casual step. It suggests the defense might try to argue that Stines wasn't in a sound state of mind when the shooting happened. Maybe influenced by overwhelming pressure, the personal betrayal, the trauma of finding out about this alleged scandal involving his lifelong friend.
An insanity defense is notoriously difficult to prove, though, isn't it?
Extremely difficult. Typically, you have to prove that at the time of the crime, the defendant either didn't understand what they were doing or didn't know it was wrong, usually because of a severe mental disease or defect. It requires a lot of psychiatric testimony, evidence about his mental state leading up to it. It's a high bar.
Okay, so that's one angle. Is there anything else?
Yes, a second major defense motion, a motion to dismiss the indictment against Stines altogether.
Dismiss the whole thing. On what basis?
They're citing grave allegations of prosecutorial misconduct and even missing testimony.
Prosecutorial misconduct. Like what?
It could be a range of things. Withholding evidence that might help the defense, what they call exculpatory evidence, or improper conduct during the grand jury process, serious stuff. If those allegations stick, they challenge the fundamental fairness of the prosecution's entire case right from the start.
Wow. So the defense isn't just focusing on Stines' state of mind, but also attacking the legal process itself.
Exactly. It suggests they're scrutinizing every single step of how these charges were brought against him. So, yeah, what does this all mean for the trial? It's shaping up to be incredibly complex, not just about the act, the shooting, but about all these convoluted circumstances around it and the very integrity of the legal process being used.
That loop court analysis framed it as a question, didn't it?
It did. Was this emotional collapse or premeditated murder? The insanity defense obviously goes straight for the emotional collapse angle. It tries to explain his state of mind, suggesting his actions were maybe the result of a sudden, overwhelming breakdown, possibly triggered by what he learned in that deposition about Judge Mullins.
Seeing it as this catastrophic personal and professional betrayal.
Right, trying to shift the legal story from intentional malice to perhaps a temporary loss of mental capacity.
And the challenge of the indictment, the misconduct allegations.
Well, from a broader perspective, those are profoundly significant too. They challenge the basic fairness of the whole process. If there's any truth to claims that evidence was hidden or procedures weren't followed correctly, that could seriously undermine the prosecution.
How so? What could happen?
It could lead to delays, evidence being thrown out, maybe even, as they requested, the charges being dismissed entirely. It just layers more complexity onto an already incredibly tangled situation. It pushes the community to question not just the initial crime, but how justice is being handled afterwards.
And beyond the courtroom drama, what about the impact on the community, public perception?
Oh, that's immense. Think about it. How does a community even begin to grapple with these multiple layers of betrayal? You've got the judicial system allegedly betraying people with the sex for favor scheme, then the institutional betrayal, a sheriff killing a judge, and now the legal process itself is being questioned with these misconduct allegations.
It creates a crisis of confidence, surely.
A deep, pervasive one. It erodes trust in every single aspect of the justice system. It leaves people wondering, where can they possibly turn for fair treatment? This kind of multi-layered failure.
Yeah.
It has a devastating long-term impact on the social contract within a community. It makes healing and moving forward incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I can only imagine. In this case, as tragic and, personal as it is for Letcher County, it feels like it has ripples that go much further.
It absolutely does. That loop court analysis really helps broaden the discussion to these bigger themes. It shows how this deeply local tragedy resonates on a much larger scale.
How so?
Well, it highlights that this isn't just about one judge and one sheriff. It's potentially about a justice system collapse, a fundamental failure when a judge, the embodiment of law, allegedly runs a sextortion ring. That in itself is a profound systemic betrayal.
With the system turning on itself.
And then the murder itself, the sheriff killing the judge, is framed as that institutional betrayal, where the very institutions meant to provide safety and order actively cause harm or at least enable it, a sheriff killing a judge. It's just a shocking inversion of their roles.
And the loop court analysis argues this resonates worldwide. How does that work?
Well, the argument is that the abuse of power in rural Appalachia resonates worldwide. You might ask, okay, why would a local scandal in a small county have global implications? The framework suggests it's because the underlying issues, corruption, systemic failure, the breakdown of public trust, these are universal themes.
So it's a specific example of a global problem.
Exactly. The loop court framework suggests this case is like a localized version of a challenge facing societies everywhere. How do you maintain integrity when power is concentrated? How do you prevent its abuse? The specific details in Letcher County might be unique, tied to its Appalachian context. The tight-knit relationships, maybe challenges with oversight.
Yeah.
But those dynamics, a small power structure where accountability weakens or gets ignored, you can find variations of that all over the globe. Think about challenges in developing nations, or even just insular communities anywhere.
Yeah.
Lack of transparency, unchecked authority. It can lead to similar outcomes.
So the fragility of justice isn't tied to one place.
Not at all. It's a constant battle against human failings and the corrupting influence of unchecked power, whether it's a small county courthouse or a huge city government.
And it really challenges us everywhere, doesn't it?
It does. It challenges societies globally to ask, what happens when the systems we trust, the police, the courts, the very foundations of law and order, what happens when those systems fail us? Or worse, actively turn against us? This case is a stark warning. It shows that the breakdown of civic trust is a universal vulnerability. When the people you rely on for protection become the perpetrators, the impact is immense, far-reaching.
And the fact they were lifelong friends.
That just adds another layer of, almost Shakespearean betrayal to it all.
Yeah.
Our sources explicitly pose that critical question. How do you prosecute a family, a friend, a betrayal inside a courthouse? It highlights the deeply personal, emotional complexities woven into the legal and systemic ones.
It's not just about laws and statutes.
Not at all. It's about navigating these ruptured relationships, the profound shock felt by an entire community that saw this intimate betrayal happen in its most sacred public spaces, the emotional toll on people there who likely knew both men. It's almost impossible to overstate. Trust isn't just broken, it's shattered. Irreparably, maybe, at multiple levels.
And that loop court idea about interrogating the structure.
Yeah, that's crucial here. Instead of just relying on individual testimony, look deeper. Understand the underlying systemic flaws, the societal conditions that allow these failures to happen and persist.
So asking how the environment let this happen.
Exactly. The local power dynamics, the lack of robust oversight, maybe a cultural acceptance of certain things. How did that allow this situation to fester and finally explode into violence? That deeper analysis is vital if we're truly going to learn anything from such a devastating event.
It's not just about punishing individuals then.
No, it has to be about reforming the systems that allowed the abuse to flourish in the first place.
So as this whole complex saga continues to unfold, what's next? What are the roads ahead, legally and otherwise?
Well, for Sheriff Stines, we're looking at those pending legal actions. Crucial pretrial motions about his bond, his mental competency, and those really important challenges to the indictment itself based on the prosecutorial misconduct claims.
And any one of those could significantly change things.
Absolutely. They could lead to delays, maybe even a complete reevaluation of the charges against him.
And the stakes for him personally are incredibly high.
Extremely high. Prosecutors are reportedly considering seeking the death penalty.
The death penalty.
Yes. Which just underscores the immense gravity of the charge's first-degree murder of a public official. Considering the death penalty tells you how seriously the state is taking this. It highlights the potential for a truly devastating outcome, not just for Stines, but for everyone involved, and for the community that's grappling with all these legal repercussions.
Is the death penalty common in Kentucky for this type of charge?
Kentucky law does allow for the death penalty in cases of aggravated murder, and that includes murdering a public official in the line of duty. So, yes, it's a very real, very severe possibility hanging over the whole process.
And outside the murder trial itself, what about the sex for favors scandal allegations against Judge Mullins? Does that just go away?
Not at all. That shadow looms very large. It promises a long aftermath of its own. Those extensive allegations could easily lead to significant civil lawsuits from the alleged victim.
Seeking justice, compensation.
Exactly. Seeking restitution for the profound emotional, psychological, maybe even physical harm they experienced. These lawsuits would aim to hold Judge Mullins' estate accountable, provide some measure of compensation, some recognition of the trauma.
And could it go beyond civil suits?
It could. Our sources mention the possibility of federal investigations.
Federal. Why would the federal government get involved?
Well, it could indicate a recognition that maybe this wasn't just an isolated incident. Or perhaps that the local system needs external intervention to really uncover the full truth and start rebuilding trust. It implies the story might be much larger, potentially exposing deeper corruption or a wider network of abuse that goes beyond just one judge.
So federal involvement would signal concerns about the local system's ability to handle it.
It often does. It could signal a concern that the scope of the alleged corruption is too big for local resources, or maybe that the integrity of the local justice system itself is too compromised to address these really profound issues independently. It's like a tacit admission that a local problem has grown so large that a higher authority needs to step in, ensure proper accountability, maybe prevent further systemic breakdown.
This whole case, then, it just serves as this stark reminder
Of the fragility of justice, yeah.
Hmm.
Especially when power gets abused from inside the very institutions designed to uphold it. It's a powerful illustration of how easily a system can get corrupted when people in authority lose their moral compass, exploit those they're sworn to protect.
leaving behind shattered lives and disillusionment.
Exactly. And the long road to rebuilding trust in Letcher County. It's going to require not just accountability for the individuals, but a really thorough examination and reform of the structures that let this crisis fester.
So true justice here isn't just about punishment.
No, it's also about understanding and repairing those systemic cracks that allowed it all to happen in the first place. It demands looking hard at the structures, the oversight, the culture that either enabled or failed to prevent such a catastrophic breakdown of trust and order. That journey towards healing for Letcher County, that's going to be long, arduous. It'll demand transparency, accountability at every step to try and ensure something like this loop court doesn't emerge again.
So we've unpacked a truly unsettling deep dive here. The tragic murder of Judge Kevin Mullins by his friend, Sheriff Shawn Stines.
Intertwined with these shocking allegations of a systemic sex for favors scheme. Allegations that turn to courtroom, chambers, even the jail into sites of profound abuse and betrayal.
Yeah. We've seen how this case exposes not just individual crimes, but this profound systemic and institutional betrayal. It challenges our fundamental understanding of justice, the trust we place in those who wield its power. It's not just local news, it's a chilling case study in the corrupting influence of unchecked authority.
And this Appalachian tragedy, as the loop court analysis terms it, it really forces us all to confront a universal truth. The systems designed to protect us, they're only as strong as the integrity of the people running them.
When that integrity fails.
When those in power choose to exploit rather than serve, the reverberations are felt far and wide. Shattering lives, yes, but also shattering the collective faith in the very foundations of society. It leaves us with a provocative thought, maybe. How do you even begin to rebuild trust when the very foundations of justice and even friendship have been shattered so publicly, so devastatingly?
And what vigilance does it demand from all of us?
Exactly, to prevent these kinds of insidious loops of corruption from forming in our own communities.
Yeah. Consider the immense responsibility that comes with power and the catastrophic consequences when that power is abused. It's a story that really reminds us of the constant vigilance needed to safeguard our institutions and the vulnerable people they're meant to protect. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you a clearer, if unsettling, picture of this ongoing situation and the profound questions it raises.